This is a video all about the A pillar. This is the A pillar, chromes and seals and how to fit them and what fittings you'll need to do it. The first piece of trim you're going to be fitting is this piece of trim here, and it should have 9 screw holes in it. Those 9 holes there correspond, or should correspond, to 9 holes on the A pillar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Only 3 of the holes are actually used to attach this piece of trim to the A pillar, and that's the 2nd hole, the 5th hole, and the last hole down here. These holes here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, are used to attach this piece of trim, and so these holes basically are just pass-through holes. The screws pass straight through there, and this is attached on there. And the last hole here, which is slightly bigger than the other hole, when you buy a new A pillar trim, you should have a little plastic stud like that in it, and that last hole is for that plastic stud, like so. Now if you go ahead and screw this piece of trim straight onto the car like so, and you've just had your car painted, there is a good chance that you'll end up scratching the paint or wearing the paint out, and then leading to a rusting A pillar. So Mercedes do a strip of foam that is glued on the inside of this piece of trim. You can see on the other pieces of trim that came off the gold parts car the remnants of that piece of foam on the inside edge here. Now you do not need to use any sealant or glue on this piece of trim here. In fact, you don't need to use any sealant or glue on any of the A pillar trims. This is the foam strip. When you buy it, it comes enough of it to do both sides, and the part number is A126 698 1898. It's only a few pence, maybe less than £1. And what we can do is just mask off this piece of trim, put some trim fix on there, and then just glue that in. Then we're going to carefully spray some adhesive, hopefully on 2 sides of this. Once you've got that glue on, you just want to gently press that down into the corner, make sure that it is stuck down. Now if you did get any excess glue on the outside facing bit of chrome, unfortunately I did, make sure you get that off now before it dries. It's much easier. There we go, that's pretty much ready to go on the car now. If you are lucky, when you come to take your trims off, you'll find that the next piece of trim has a piece of rubber attached, which you can see running down that channel there. Now unfortunately on this car, and also on the gold parts car, there was no such piece of rubber on our pieces of trim, so we've had to order that. For some reason, this piece of rubber trim here, Mercedes have that as a mushroom head bolt, and that's the part number there, 000 987 5460, and it comes in a length just long enough to do 2 pieces of this chrome here. It costs £13.50 for that length of rubber there, and that will just slot straight into the channel down here. This rubber strip here is not symmetrical, and it's slightly unintuitive the way it goes in. This bit here obviously slots into the channel, but the longer bit of rubber goes on the inside, and it's this shorter, smaller bit of rubber that's actually showing on the outside. So let me just show you on a car that's already been fitted. Okay, this piece of strip of rubber down here that you can see is the thinner or smaller piece of rubber. That's how it looks when it's slotted into the channel. You do get slightly more than you need, so I normally cut it at a slight angle. So similarly at the top, just take it beyond and cut it at an angle just to make it neater. You're very lucky when you come to take these pieces of chrome trim off. All these screws will come out perfectly well, and they'll be beautiful Phillips raised head screws. But in practice, what normally happens, some of those screws are completely rusted, some will just, the heads will snap off, etc., and you have to drill the remnants out. And in other cases, you'll find that over the years, what people have done is they've put all sorts of different types of screw in there. For example, here we've just got some slotted ones. So when you're putting the whole thing back together, get yourself some stainless steel screws. These are raised head stainless steel screws, 2.9 times 13 mil long. This is the profile of a raised head screw. You obviously get flat head screws as well. If your chrome is not too knackered, you'll find that these screws just fit in those holes perfectly without falling all the way through. What you may find, depending on the condition of your car, is that the 2.9 screws are just slightly too small to actually bite in some of those holes, in which case you'll have to go to raised head 3.5 13 mil screws. So in this particular case, 2 of these screws are fine, and 3 of them, the holes are just too big, so we're going to have to step it up to a 3.5 thickness screw. Next up, we're going to put on the next bit of trim, and my advice is before you screw this to the car vertically that you lubricate it in some way, because you're going to have to slide the A-pillar trim seal in that, and we're just going to use a bit of washing up liquid to lubricate that. But as I mentioned in a previous video, it's much easier to lubricate this when it's horizontal as opposed to when it's vertical and sloping back like that. So we just put a little bit of washing up liquid in the channels, and then we can attach that to the car. It is not unusual for some of the screws to snap off when you try and take them out of this A-pillar. We've got 2 snapped off screws on this end, one here and one at the top. And I warn you, before you try to drill new holes to fit new screws, that this is a thick piece of steel. This is the A-pillar from the gold parts car. You can see how thick that steel is. You will need a pack of, or several packs probably, of 2.5 mil and less drill bits to get through there, because I don't know what kind of steel this is, but it is super hard. And you can see if you look down there, each one of these screws snapped off when we came to take that piece of trim off the gold parts car. So take an afternoon off work and be patient. The last bit of advice I'd give when drilling out these holes here is it's very easy to snap off one of the screws once you've drilled the holes. We went 2.5 mil and then up to 3 mil for this hole here, and we went through 2 or 3 screws before we actually managed to cut a nice clean thread. So whatever you do, if you feel the screw binding, use some oil, cutting oil, whatever, but don't carry on screwing it in, otherwise you'll snap it off, which I did on the other side, and it is extremely annoying when you do that. We got our A-pillar seals from these guys here, Euro. They are different on each side, so make sure you get the right part number. This is the right hand side part number here, and the left hand side part number here. If you're in the UK, you can get your seals from the SL shop up there. Very often they will actually be Euro parts. Also worth checking out these guys here, rockauto.com. Although they're an American company, they do ship to Europe and the UK, so check out their website as well. You may find that those seals are cheaper via those guys. When you come to actually fit the A-pillar seal, there's 2 methods you can use. You can either hook in the back channel and then use something like a flat bladed screwdriver, or better still a plastic tool, to very carefully just push in the this, or you can actually try sliding the seal down as well. On this occasion I'm going to use the pushing in method. When you're working in this seal, be careful not to stretch it downwards, because you've got to align that little white stud there into the hole. So I like to put that in first and then kind of just do the top bit and then work from the bottom upwards, just to make sure that you don't end up getting to the bottom and finding that things don't align. And then we're just also going to check that these holes up here align. Now often what you've got to do is actually pull this down to get these holes to align here. You see where the hole is here? That's got to align there, like so. So I'm now working my way up here from the bottom, just gently pressing this in, making sure that you don't damage the seal. As I say, I should be using a plastic tool, which you don't happen to have here. I'm ensuring that this part here is actually going to fit at the bottom. Now, often this part at the bottom here will be glued on with some Evo stick or some kind of contact adhesive. I've got all of this seal in here up to the velvet bit, and we're just going to go around the back now and press that in. Just very gently pressing the back bit in, and then we'll go around the front and continue. We've got that seal pressed in all the way now, and here at the bottom what you'd normally do is just use a bit of contact adhesive. I haven't quite tapped that all the way in yet. You'd just get a little piece of wood or rubber mallet to tap that in, and then just glue the last flap down. Now, anybody who's ever fitted one of these A-pillar seals will know that the real fun and games begins when you try and fit the front part. And there's two tips I'd give you. Tip number one is make sure you've got something down here like a cloth or something like that in that gap, so when you drop the screws, which you inevitably will, they don't roll into the car and get lost forever. And secondly, along the A-pillar, mark where the holes are. So on this particular car here, I've put tape where all the holes are, and the holes are halfway along this tape. Now, this piece of trim is not actually too bad, and I don't have to use washers or anything like that. So my advice is put the screws in first and then wrap the rubber over so to keep the screws in and stop them falling out. This top piece is the trickiest screw to get in, and it's also the most delicate because that piece of rubber is quite thin. So make sure you don't inadvertently rip that piece of rubber when you're lapping it over. On the other side of the car, we fitted this piece first and then this piece, and it is really fiddly job. This time round I'm just going to see if it's possible to fit it this way round. So slot this into the rubber first and then screw it down and then fit that piece. Boy, did it take a long time to get those A-pillar trims on. Had Grace been here, she would have learnt some new vocabulary. We got there in the end, and my conclusion is it's actually not much easier, but it was easier putting the front on first and then putting the back bit on. That was quicker than doing it the other way round. I'm going to leave the video here and just finish with the part numbers, prices, what screw sizes you need, etc. And then in the next video, we're going to be doing the scraper seals on these doors. These guys here in the UK do those A-pillar seals. They're £40.84. I think that's for a Euro seal there, and you can get the premium seal, which I think is a slightly different type of rubber, for £106 each. These are plus VAT, incidentally. You can also get those Euro parts from rockauto.com, £18.64, but you will pay shipping on top of that. We got the raised head posi screws, the 3.5 13mm ones from these guys here, K-Fast eBay, £2.63 for 20 of them. We also got some 2.9mm 13mm raised posi head, £2.59 from the same guys, K-Fast, here on eBay.